My name is Steve Viachica. I'm an Associate Professor of Instructional and Performance Technology here at Boise State University. It's my honor and privilege to introduce you to our guest today, Elliot Rosenberg. I first met him when I came to Boise State. Then I was conducting a teleconference to interview some of our IPT alumni. Now I follow his tweets. I've invited Elliot to spend time with us today because he can offer unique insights about performance technology. He uses performance technology and instructional technology as the Director of Training for AT&T. In this role, he's responsible for the design of all sales-related training for AT&T's retail sales force and leaders across the country. He leads a team of 6 managers and 25 instructional designers. During his time with us, Elliot will address the following topics: what prepared him to perform his current work, why and how he applies performance technology at AT&T, a description of a current project, his insights in moving from an order taker for training to a performance improvement practitioner, advice he has for students entering the field, and your questions. At Elliot's request, we're setting this up as a conversation, so this is not a PowerPoint show, this is a dialogue. And with this in mind, I'm going to ask Elliot to start. Elliot, we're delighted to have you with us today.
Thanks, Steve, and good morning, everybody. I appreciate the opportunity to spend some time with you. Just as a little bit of perspective, I graduated from the Boise program in, 2002, and it has grown quite large and quite sophisticated since that time, when we were on a simple DOS platform and then going into your current platform that you use right now. It has grown as one of the better programs that I have found across the country, and you should be excited to be a part of it. As you know, there are many organizations out there trying to copy what Boise State has done, and I'm still at the top of my list of programs to recommend, so you're in a good one. So the initial question that Steve poses about preparing me, and you know, there are many people who end up in this industry by default. The old adage, those who can't teach sometimes point to people here. But I found the majority of people, just through an incident in their lives, find this industry as saying, you know what, this is what I've been looking for, this is what I've been seeking, and that happened to me, quite frankly, listening to, of all people, Ken Blanchard. If you know Ken Blanchard out of San Diego, who has quite a passion for performance in the workplace, but mostly through soft skills. But when you start digging into it, and I was a member of ISPI National, my brother was the president of the national organization way back in the day. One of the sponsors in that periodical was Boise State, and I started doing some checking, looking for some validations, and it was very, very clear that this program was in its infancy, but one that had a lot of potential. So what got me started into this really was just listening to some other speakers, and I think overall it's rare when people find a passion that they want to do with their careers, and I was lucky enough to find mine. There are those who may change jobs, change companies over and over and over again, and I think many of the studies have shown that people who are new to the workforce will change careers 7 to 8 times. I haven't done that, and I have actually, today is my 26th service anniversary with AT&T. So I'm in here for the long haul, and I've been doing this for approximately the past 10 years. So that's what got me excited about this career and how I got prepared. I have a master's degree in Instructional Performance Technology from IPT, and that really was a culmination. I got an MBA from the University of Miami, and that gave me some business background. And out of the University of Buffalo, I got a bachelor's in anthropology. And of all things, why would anyone get a bachelor's in anthropology? And now in hindsight, it really just falls right into place with understanding human behavior. And I am in the process of getting my doctorate in instructional technology. I am what they call ABD, all but dissertation. You know, a bit stalled, quite frankly. So that's a little bit about me and how I prepared for it. And as Steve said, my team does all the sales training designs for all of our retail outlets. So if you see an AT&T store in the Boise area or wherever you are in the country, and you walk into there, all of the training that those people in that store and their leadership have received was designed by my team. So, Steve, I'm going to pause there for just a moment and see if there's any questions regarding my background that the people may want to ask.
If you'd like to ask a question, please. If you'd like to ask a question, please either raise your hand or type a question in the question panel. Let's move on, Elliot.
Okay, good. Well, thanks. Thanks, Steve. So why and how do I apply HPT at AT&T? I'll tell you that AT&T is trying to redo itself. It's a company of 280,000 people worldwide. There are training organizations that abound, and we have attempted to consolidate all of those training organizations for the company in one. And the training organization within AT&T consists probably of about 1,000 people total. Now that includes all of our IT support, all of our instructors, people who do design work, management, leadership, all of that. And it's a large number. We're a large company. So when you break that down a little bit, when you talk about sales, HPT is a great application because you don't want people to just sit in a classroom listening to a bunch of factoids and then go out and deliver an experience with a customer that is different every time you go into a store. So we are very cognizant of the fact that when you go into an AT&T store, you should experience the same sort of sales experience, the same sort of desires that this was a pleasant experience, the individual knew what he or she was talking about, and even if he or she didn't know, they knew how to find the information. So we use HPT to get people to perform their jobs better. Our goal is not to fill them with information and regurgitate it back. Our goal is to teach them where to find the information so they can assist that customer. So HPT principles, human performance technology, is right in line with where we need to go. And just as an aside for us, it has come, we're trying to prepare for the workforce of tomorrow, so to speak. The workforce of tomorrow, I say those in the year 2020. And if you think about it, the people who are in the workforce, let me regress. Those who are going to be in the workforce in 2020 or 10 short years from now are currently in the 8th grade. And also in the year 2020, you will find that there will be 5 generations of workers in the workforce. So if there was ever a point in time when human performance technology was necessary, it is now, simply to prepare for those 5 generations of workers who all learn very differently, as well as those people who are currently in the 8th grade, and you can see how they learn today. The bottom line is that we cannot, at AT&T, do a one-size-fits-all delivery of any sort of learning, that we have to be able to customize the learning based on the learner themselves or the performer themselves. So that's one of the key differences that we've got here. So I'll pause there for another moment and see what questions you might have.
Elliot, Robbie's asking, in your experience, what's the biggest challenge facing performance specialists today? Is it the cross-generational workforce, or is it something else that's occupying space on your radar?
Well, I'll tell you right now, it's competition. As a human performance technologist, the cross-generational workforce is just something that our leaders are beginning to grapple with. It is relatively new. I'm working very hard to point that out to them. But one of the biggest challenges is really simply competition. If you look at our business, wireless cell phones and connectivity is becoming pretty much a commodity out there. And our biggest competitor, believe it or not, is not Verizon or T-Mobile or Sprint, but Best Buy. You can walk into a Best Buy and they sell everything that AT&T sells. So our goal as technologists is to really get customers to understand why they need to come to an AT&T store for everything that they need, from phones to television service to computers to e-readers to tablets, whatever the need may be. We want them to come to an AT&T store rather than a Best Buy store. And the biggest advice that I can give anybody is, if you're going to get into this industry, know the textbook, but do not show the textbook to your customer, and that being your client. Understand their business, talk in language that they can understand, but I would not, for example, reference Gilbert's behavior engineering model or Gagne's 9 steps of instruction to a business person. What they want to know is, if I'm going to invest in some learning, how do I get the return on my investment? That's the challenge. That's the challenge we will always have, in my opinion. The key is to understand that learning needs to have a seat at the table. That's the challenge that everybody will have, and probably the biggest one that you need to overcome, simply through credibility, small pieces at a time.
Elliot, when you talk about improving performance, clearly you're not talking about loading people up with a lot of training and regurgitating a lot of things. Are you using things like performance support, where you're looking at assembling a system of information pieces, help on computer screens, training, and other performance support solutions in ways that help your salespeople meet your business goals?
Absolutely. Performance, our business is very complex. And I think one of the fundamental shifts that people who are traditional trainers or traditional I need training or traditional, they're not doing very well, so they have to be trained, need to rethink this. And what we do is we're trying to move them from just education and training and learning to really performance. And once they understand that it's all about information and what you choose to do with that information, people will understand the value that we bring to the table. So it's performance support is in all of our systems. We try to guide them. Let me back up. It's in all of our systems, but to varying degrees of success. And we have, through all the mergers that AT&T went through, there were times that our customer service reps, who you may call on the telephone, have to access upwards of 38 different systems, all built by different companies. Whereas if you go into an AT&T store now, there's only one system, and that is, everything flows through the business, through that system. So performance support is absolutely critical, and with the level of complexity that our business is in, they have to have it. And you compare our stores, for example, to an Apple store, quite frankly, all they sell are 3 products. They sell an iPhone, they sell an iPad, they sell some computers, and an iPod. That's pretty much it. So it's hard not to get excited about a couple of products. Our goal is to ensure that our reps can give that entire connectivity piece to their customers in a seamless way. So performance support is absolutely critical. And that could be, by the way, to very simplistic. When you go to Starbucks and the barista in the back writes the name of the drink on the cup, that's a job aid. It doesn't have to be this fancy-dancy iPhone, iPad, of which I'm a fan of, by the way, but it doesn't have to be technologically savvy. It could be as simple as writing the directions on a cup. That's performance support. That's a job aid.
Thank you. Josh, Bert has a question, and I'm going to unmute his mic so he can ask you himself. Josh?
Yeah, Elliot, you mentioned in 2020 that there'll be 5 generations of workforce. I was just curious, did you decide to look into the future and figure that out, or is that a different department? Or, I guess myself, I'm new to this, and I wouldn't have thought to think, hey, what kind of generations will I have in the workforce in 2020?
Josh, it's an interesting question. I'm not that smart, but there's a bunch of other people that are a lot smarter than me, and one of them wrote a book called The 2020 Workplace, and I got a lot of it from there. I don't recall the author's name, but if you just Google or Amazon 2020 Workplace, it'll come up. And they started thinking about that. And there's another, there's a video link, and Steve, I'll send you the link, done by Socialnomics, which is a truly fascinating perspective on the volume of things that are going on out there in terms of social media and how people are using Facebook in lieu of email these days. So things like that. I didn't think of it, but I'll tell you what, the leaders of the business thought about it, and I'm on a team, for example, to say, how does AT&T need to prepare for the year 2020? Because if we don't start now, we're going to miss it. These folks who are entering into the workforce, we need to understand how to recruit them, how to teach them how to do their job, how to get them to stay with the company for the long haul. You know, it's a $50,000 expense when someone leaves after they've been hired and trained. That's a lot of money. So to answer your question, Josh, I didn't think of it, but I'm glad somebody did. And the book is The 2020 Workplace, if you want to Google it.
Great, thank you.
Sure. So another item, if there are no other questions, Steve, there's another item on the list here.
Yes. A description of a current project?
Well, I have, last count was about 72 active projects that we're working on, and I don't know if that's an impressive number or a little number, but it keeps us going. One of the most current projects is, you know, our store managers are very young. Typically, they are successful sellers who we promote to be store managers, maybe have some college, maybe not, maybe 22, 23 years old, and we're asking them to run a $2 million business. And we're wondering, you know, why customers aren't giving us good ratings at sometimes. Some are giving us great ratings. Why aren't store productivities going up and some better than others? So typically, in the old traditional way, we would send people to a training class for an hour, 2 hours, 3 hours, 5 days, 3 weeks, whatever the case may be. And after you were trained, you said you were done. One of the biggest factoids that I was able to provide my leadership to invest more in the learning was this, that 10% of somebody's retention is gained in the classroom. And without the proper reinforcement, all they're going to retain is 10% of what you just spent whatever time in the classroom talking about. Another 20% can be retained through effective coaching and mentoring. So the lion's share, or 70% of that, is done by on-the-job learning and informal learning. So what we have been able to do for this particular project was convince our leaders that you can't send somebody to a class that teaches them how to manage a $2 million business, how to hire and fire people, how to bring inventory in, how to maintain inventory, give customer service, take cash, make deposits, deal with real estate, marketing, merchandising, all of that stuff. You can't do that in a couple of days. So the project was that we got them to allocate 13 weeks or one full quarter of the year to learning how to be an effective store manager. And this 13 weeks is not all instructor-led, thank goodness. There's 4 weeks of instructor-led spread out over 13 weeks. And 3 of those 4 weeks deal with soft skills of how to be an effective leader. What are the human resource applications that you need to use? And it's very, very functional and very, very specific. You'll find if you get out into the industry, there are plenty of vendors out there who want to sell you their library of courseware. They want to sell you this and put it online, and everybody takes courses online, and you eliminate all the travel costs and all that sort of stuff. My advice to you is that you be very, very careful. In this particular project, we made all of the content customizable to AT&T and relevant to the job performance of these store managers. They understood the acronyms, they understood the scenarios, they understood the environment, and it made it very, very relevant, and they could easily enhance their retention by the proper reinforcement that their bosses got, and also through the communities of practice that they built, the performance support tools that we gave them, as well as just learning within their stores of how to do their job. So the scenario over the 13 weeks is, there's a little bit of pre-work. We have them do some 360 feedback. We bring them all to Atlanta. We don't regionalize this, so they can start learning from each other and building that network that you can't possibly script. They go home for 2 weeks to practice what they have learned and prepare for the next course. They come back to Atlanta, and the cycle repeats for 3 soft skills classes, 1 operations class, all intertwined with performance support, applications back on the job, and we do some check-ins with them via technology such as we're using today. We have our own, and it's all tracked, which is what our leadership is looking for. The bottom line is that we have seen performance of our store managers who've come through this program have better indices, better metrics, better ROIs than those who have not. And while you know that that is not totally attributable to the training, we'd like to think so. So that current project took for a typical event of training for store manager and made it into a long-term investment of a process of ongoing learning. And I think we're starting to see some positive results. It's nothing you can check right away, but I tell you, if full sessions is a measure, I'm right there. If level 1s are a measure, I'm right there. Even level 2s, but honestly, I don't really care about level 1 and 2s. You have to understand it to see that your product is at least on target. What really matters is the level 3s and 4s. And, let's not put all the stock into Kirkpatrick's levels of evaluation. It's possible. Lots of variables could impact it. The bottom line is, for me, are we making more sales? Are we reducing our employee turnover, and are we increasing customer satisfaction? Those are the 3 measures that guide the success of our efforts. It has nothing to do with levels, quite frankly. It's all about the business.
Elliot, it would also...
One last point. If you go into an environment and start quoting textbook stuff, I'm sure Steve is good at that, but if you don't make your stuff relevant to the business, in my mind, they'll throw you out.
I'm right there with you in terms of the need to take the language we use when we talk amongst ourselves and change that for when we deal with clients, because our specialized terms for us are like a secret decoder ring, and they help us cover a lot of ground with shorter terms sometimes. But when we're dealing with clients, it's a kiss of death to be pulling out these textbook terms and using language that clients don't want or need to understand. New hire training's always been an interesting place for people who are looking to improve performance. I would imagine that in addition to sales turnover and satisfaction, you're probably also seeing a reduction in the time to proficiency for your new sales managers as well.
Absolutely. We have trending information that shows that our sellers who come out of our new hire training, since we've redone it, invested more time in it, and more money, are outperforming reps 60 days after the conclusion of training than those tenured reps who've been here a number of years. And I'll tell you, reinforcement by their sales leadership is absolutely critical. And those who've been here a while, getting a rut and just collecting a paycheck, they're not going to make it. Our sales jobs are commissioned jobs, and you need to be active. And you can't just sell. In my words, you just can't go up to a customer and say, "Let me just sell you an iPhone," and be done with it. Because what we want is a relationship with that customer. And yeah, in our world, an iPhone may be an easy sale. But what happens when other companies are able to sell the iPhone and not just AT&T? That individual is going to be ill-prepared. So our goal in all of our training is to prepare them to sell the AT&T portfolio of products in a way that AT&T wants them to sell, and that is about a customer experience that is memorable, so they can come, and knowledgeable and credible. And that's absolutely the key. So again, Kirkpatrick's levels 1, 2, 3, and 4. unless you're a Green Bay Packers fan, which he is, I mean, I'm kind of over it. I'm kind of over it. You got to have relevance to the business, relevance to the business. And that's the way that they're going to want it.
It sounds as one of the strategies that you use is making sure that you've got enough organizational intelligence to couch what you say with executives in ways that help you support performance and do right by them. Are there other strategies that you've used in moving from an order taker for training to a performance improvement practitioner, or whatever it is you use as a phrase when you describe yourself to your bosses?
Yeah, it's interesting. You will find in the businesses that marketing, I'll say the training department, marketing and training and people who do just operations and stuff, the lines are becoming very, very blurry. We have marketing folks who think that they're writing training. I have operations people who think they're pretty good at marketing, and then I got learning folks who think they can do everything. And yet reality is the answer is probably yes to all of that and no to all of that. So some strategies that we use to stay out of order taking is, let me preface it by saying you're not going to get out of that strategy, at least not fully. You can have the debate with your client, and then at the end of the day when the client says, you know, Elliot, I understand that you don't think instructor-led training is the right way to go, but you know what, that's what I want to do, and you do it. Because in my world here, I'm funded by my clients. I'm not funded by HR. So the money that they spend on me, and I want to spend it wisely. But because we have such a credible relationship with our clients, we are okay to have those sort of debates. The biggest phrase that I learned from Dr. Chung, you guys are using her book now, aren't you?
Yes, we are.
I need to write a book. I mean, I missed my call. But one of the phrases that I learned in her intro class was the debate about the medium and the message. And you could debate this all day long, but I firmly believe that the message drives the medium rather than the medium driving the message. And I'll give you an example. We here in this company had an instance where we had to train everybody on a lot of things very, very quickly. And they spent a lot of money on converting all of our instructor-led training to web-based. So what happened, it wasn't very exciting, and it was very, not only wasn't exciting, it was very boring. And people just clicked through, and yeah, they got a completion on their record. You did volumes and volumes and volumes. But at the end of the day, had we needed them to perform those particular tasks, we would have been in a lot of trouble. So the conversation that helps give you credibility to get away from order taking to performance improvement is to say, at least for me, what is your message, and then let's determine the medium. So in that particular example that I gave you, if the message was we need to have Elliot to be able to climb a telephone pole, well, I'm not so sure that watching a web-based course on pole climbing was going to do the trick for me. So again, when you have credibility and can offer solutions, especially about the delivery medium, get a good understanding of what their message is, and that's how you can work with your marketing folks and your operations folks. And it's wonderful when they can tell you what the message is rather than just give you a bunch of factoids. What is their penetration of market share that they're looking for? What is the return rate that they're trying to achieve? What is the level of employee turnover that you're trying to come down to? Those sort of questions will get your clients thinking in business terms, and then they'll leave the training design up to you. Don't ask them, how long can the class be? Don't ask them, can I use Flash? That's not, they don't know. They don't know. Give them the solid recommendation, and you'll be on your way. If you start talking about everything in the form of a class or a course, that's going to be the so-called kiss of death. There are some things that I'll tell you that I think is an interesting way to look at this, and if you'll indulge me for a second, that I think that we need to go from e-learning to e-working, bringing learning into the workplace, and rather than having people stopping and going to training and then coming back, you just incorporate that learning into their work environment. Instead of going from instruction, you need to go to information, and information abundance. What we need to teach them is how to use that information. Instead of going from like one place and one time for a training event, it should be everywhere, all the time, so they're always learning. And instead of having people write training courses, you start introducing things like wikis and blogs and, if you're allowed, Twitter and Facebook, those sorts of applications. So it gives them the ability to go pull information that they need rather than us having to push information that they may not. So the idea of a training center could go away. I think all training should be done at the workplace, with, of course, some exceptions. So it's, LMS systems as well, learning management systems, all they do is track information. It doesn't help you at all with knowledge. Your organization should invest in some sort of easily accessible knowledge management database that allows a user to find something in seconds. It should be that simple. It's one of the attractiveness of Apple's products is that their products are so simple to use that people just gravitate them. I got an iPad, and the instructions in the box said, "Hi, welcome to your iPad." That's it. It's that easy. And that's the way we need to approach learning. It needs to be that easy. Steve?
Elliot, Tiffany Carter's asking the question, as you prepare for the 2020 workplace, how concerned are you about having to spend a lot of time focusing on developing remedial skills, such as basic computational and communication skills, in order to get employees to an acceptable level of performance? If we use the movie Waiting for Superman, which is a documentary exposing the failures of the American educational system, if we use that as a guide, it would seem that the American workers of the futures won't be equipped to meet the challenges that lie ahead. What are your thoughts?
The Waiting for Superman, I'm glad you referenced it. I haven't seen it yet, but I've heard a lot about it. So this is interesting. There's somebody who may be unequipped in today's world that needs to be, let's say, retrained in order to perform their job. I'm just assuming in this one scenario that the person was already there and they were doing their job adequately, and then the things changed and they had to relearn their job because of either technology or keeping up to date or changes in the marketplace. We have to approach it. So let me back up. The other answer is, if somebody came into a job and they couldn't do some basic computer skills, and that was a requirement of the job, your answer is in training. They hired the wrong person. So, and I don't know which profile this individual may be in, but that's where we can help in performance support. I am concerned about the 5 generations in the workforce, but I also believe that we as learning professionals have to develop opportunities for all 5 of those people to be able to learn. We can't afford to have that intellectual capital walk out the door simply because we can't teach somebody like my mother how to use a computer. My mother's got adequate intellectual capital. We'll need to find a place that we can tap into that. Our obligation is to conform to their needs of learning rather than forcing them to conform the way that we design it. That's the fundamental paradigm shift that I think that we need to employ, is that being more flexible, because there's so many different workers in the workplace today. Now, another example, at AT&T, Facebook is blocked. And for whatever reason, Facebook is blocked. We have people coming into the job now who are asking, I can't access Facebook. How am I supposed to get my information? How am I supposed to show my clients this, and this? Where are my pictures? And all that sort of stuff. Facebook is just a natural way of conducting business. In fact, in Best Buy, if you didn't come in with a Twitter and Facebook network, they didn't hire you. So we have to be able to be ready for all of these different learning styles that technology is forcing upon us. And if we have the wrong people in the wrong jobs, Our job as performance technologists is to go back to the staffing organization saying, why are you hiring? But if that person is worthy of retention, we need to adapt to the way that they need to learn and not force them. I hope I answered your question adequately.
Elliot, one of the other things you spoke about is in the new hire training was the ability to recognize that learning is not a one-shot event, and that really support for learning and the transfer of learning to the job is really a shared responsibility. Are there other places where you've been able to work with people in your organization to share that responsibility for transfer in ways where there are things that students or managers do before the training and there are things that they do other things that they do after the training?
Yeah, there's a couple of things. You know, it's hard. I mean, the reality of it is that they leave any sort of training event, whether it be classroom, web-based, and I sort of lose control over them. They go back to their boss. So it's a partnership of how do you extend that learning beyond the classroom. And I'm not really sure yet. That's the challenge of 2020, is to extend that learning going forward. And then beyond we asked them to do some pre-work, to do some self-reflection on what they think their weaknesses are. One of our goals is to ensure that they can understand that learning is their responsibility and not an entitlement. I don't go in there in a classroom with a blank and call myself a blank sheet of paper and say, here I am, teach me. I go in there with a blank sheet of paper and say, you know, here I am, let me fill the paper with things that I need to know. So that's a fundamental shift. If you think about some of these generations in the workforce, there are people from the traditionalists, the old post-World War II and even baby boomers, of which I'm a part of. They come in and they listen to the teacher, and the teacher tells them what they need to know, and that's what I call training. You know, dogs get trained. You know, people learn. Dogs get trained. And if you get into some other aspects of it, people will learn, will take it more upon themselves. Whereas now you get into some of the folks who are Facebook and Twitter literate, they said, you don't need to tell me where the information is. I can find it. Just tell me what you're looking for me, what kind of objectives you're needing for me to do, and I'll get them on my own. So it's just a paradigm shift in the people whose audience that we serve. Did I answer that okay?
Josh is asking, if you had 5 new hires and each was from a different generation, how would you adapt the training for those individuals? Would you have to develop 5 separate training events?
Well, I wish our call was over right before that question was asked. But that's a tough one. I wrestle with that. And I don't know if I could create 5 different training events, but I'd offer a menu, and I'd go to the individual, all these 5 people, and say, here are multiple ways to learn, and I'll go from my world, the iPhone. You can watch a video, you could read about it, you could play with it, an actual device, you could do some virtual learning, we could put it in Second Life. You pick. There are 5 people, we have 5 different ways, they have 10 different ways, we have 3 different ways. But here are ways, you may need one of them, you may need all 5 of them. So, Josh, I'm not sure that I could say that the traditionalist gets this way and the millennials gets this way. I'm thinking that, and I don't know this, but I'm thinking that we create multiple mediums based on the message. And the message is I need to learn how to use an iPhone, or I need to learn how to make a phone call on an iPhone. And if you go to Apple's website, they're great at this. They have a video for you to see. They have a user guide that you could download. They have web forums that you could access. So a lot of the stuff is out there. I just don't think that we have leveraged it enough in order to make full use of its potential.
Elliot, what advice do you have for students who are entering the field?
Well, listen to Steve. That's first. you should always understand your client's business. I would be wary of salespeople trying to sell you stuff, and they will, libraries of content that is not customizable to your audience. And those who are entering the field, don't focus so much on training. Focus on learning and focus on performance, because that is what's going to matter to the business world. Whether you're in a hospital setting, a movie theater, government work, ice skating rinks, or even communications like I am, or in retail like I am. Understand the business is probably the biggest piece of advice that I could give you. And then make sure that you apply the principles that you're learning to the business, rather than making the business apply it to the principles that you're learning about. It is a hard business to crack. I think what people join this business because they are in a program such as the one at Boise State. The most time they don't fall into it. And I've seen the differences of people who fell backwards into this and they teach by PowerPoints, and I've seen people who understand instructional design and can really make it happen. So my best advice is just make it real, make it relevant to the people that you're working with. Understand their business and apply the concepts in terms that they understand. That's probably the best advice that I can give you.
Elliot, I recently attended a webinar where someone was talking also about the need to understand the business, and she called it a secret handshake, where once we're able to pass that secret handshake, all sorts of other things can happen. Where did you get savvy about this secret handshake in terms of understanding the client's business?
Well, it's interesting. I've been around the block a few times on this, and we're good. I'm just going to say we're good. And when you compare it to other learning organizations at AT&T, we're probably the best ones that are out there, simply because we're relevant. And they come to me saying, marketing people come, not to me, but marketing people come to us who should be skilled at writing and communicating a message, and you wouldn't believe the PowerPoint slides that they write. You know that if you've learned this, the 7 ± 2 rule, and Steve, I won't go into it now, but I'm sure you know it. The 7 ± 2 rule on a PowerPoint slide, if these guys are writing 3 and 4 sentences for bullet points, there's 9 bullet points on the slide, you can't see any white space. They just see how we're able to convey a message and turn it into performance, and they give us a seat at the table. IT people call us, marketing people call us, product people call us. It's all about communicating information and what you want them to do. So that secret handshake, again, is understanding the business. If I didn't understand retail, if I didn't understand how stores work, if I didn't understand the new product that was launched just this morning, we're carrying 3 new phones for Microsoft, carrying Windows Phone 7 products. I know it's on the internet, we designed training for it, and how we're going to make this thing sell. They came to me as a partner, because otherwise they don't find the value. It is a secret handshake, but it's a fun one. Once you gain that credibility, it's easy to lose, so you always got to be on your toes. And we've got people in here doing this because that's what they want to do. It's motivation.
Elliot, I know we have about 5 more minutes before you need to be off to your next meeting. Are there other questions that people have for Elliot?
Well, I didn't tell you if you guys have read my blogs or something. By the way, Steve, you can feel free to share the blog information with them. There's no worries. But my daughter is a freshman at the University of Alabama who just lost. So now I'm going to become a Boise State fan because I graduated from Boise State, still ranked number 3. I think they'll be in the national championship.
I agree.
Although I think you ought to get rid of that blue rug, but other than that, I think you're good to go.
Oh, no, that's the Smurf turf is what makes us unique. Roger Nielsen's asking, do you do your own evaluations?
We do. we do all the level 1, 2, 3, 4 stuff. We have knowledge assessments. We do all of that, but the proof in the pudding is that individual staying here? Are they selling more? And are our customers happy? But yes, we do all of the evaluations. We keep that in-house. We don't sub it out. I don't have a special team that does it. It's just a matter of practice. Our learning management system does the level 1. We give them knowledge assessments at various times. We do observations for level 3, and we watch their performance over time for level 4. It's not the purest form of evaluation, especially the level 4, but when you add them all together, plus their regular metrics in terms of their performance, you get a pretty good picture.
One of the things that some of our students in the instructional design course are doing now is creating authentic assessments that are level 2 evaluations. And so what people do in the assessment is what they do on the job. And their clients are finding out that they can take the test and have someone else administer all or portions of the test on the job and get level 3 transfer data. Is that something you've done?
Yeah, well, I'll say it another way. We offer them the opportunity to take the knowledge test and avoid the training. If they get and our passing score is a 90 on everything, because why not shoot for the A? If they get above a 90, they we use the phrase, clep out, or they can avoid taking the class. So it speeds the process up a bit. I'm not sure if we get any level 3 out of it, Steve, but we do take opportunities to get a baseline of what they need and recommend what they, based on the knowledge assessment, recommend what they need versus what they don't.
Thank you. Our last question's coming from Robbie, who asked, in regard to evaluations, do you believe there is value in working from level 4 back to level 1 instead of from level 1 to level 4?
Well, you have to, I don't think so, because level 1 will tell you whether you've got, at least at the basic knowledge, a good product, and whether your knowledge is being conveyed through level 2. So if you went for level 4 and things were amiss at levels 1, 2, and 3, you might have missed the, I'll get textbooky here, you might have missed the formative evaluation opportunity, because at level 4 you're pretty much in a summative evaluation. And to me, levels 1 and 2 give you the opportunity to see what I can adjust in my class or my training to ensure that question 7 isn't missed by everybody in a formative process. So it's an interesting concept. I've never tried it, but those would be my concerns.
Elliot, thank you so much for spending your time and sharing your expertise with us today.
It's my pleasure, Steve.
This is going to conclude our webinar. Thank all of you for attending. We look forward to having you back again. Thank you much. Goodbye.